want to share my story from being homeless to where I am now today. Before I get into all that, just like some background about my life as I grew up. I was actually pretty privileged. I came from upper middle class family. I lived in South Florida. I was basically given everything. I had a stable household. I had nice things. Um, you know, my parents took great care of me. They put all of my best interests first, and I got to do a lot of things, and I always had everything kind of just handed to me. So, as like some of that background, I grew up in a wealthy area. It was normal for everyone to have, brand new clothes. I never had any hand me downs. I ate high quality food, constantly went on trips, vacations. I was going to Asia like every summer. Um, just overall, like it was definitely not a hard life. I had a silver spoon really, but that all changed when I was 17. It was senior year of high school, um, and this was 2020, so this was 5 years ago exactly. And basically, I got thrown out of the house. I was kicked out by my parents. We had been fighting a lot. I don't think COVID helped with that, just because you can't go anywhere, so we were just together the whole time. Um, we really disagreed on like fundamental life paths, as unfortunate as that was. And to this day, I still don't speak with my mother. You know, it all culminated one night over something that I don't think either of us even remember what it was about. But essentially, they just got into a huge screaming match. Um, just, it was like late at night, probably like 10, 11, just screaming and fighting and yelling and just crazy stuff. And all of a sudden, before I knew what was happening, I'm getting my stuff thrown out the front of the garage. Um, and I'm just like standing there as she's throwing my stuff out, like she's throwing trash bags of my clothes and you know, like random just things of like that I had. I didn't have that much, like, as a 17-year-old, but just everything basically, like my shoes and my clothes and personal belongings, things like that, just getting tossed out onto the driveway. Um, and then she shut the garage door, locked the doors, and there I was, silver spoon to homeless over one night. And I remember just sitting there, kind of thinking, like, in a way, I was kind of like defiant. I was like, all right, like if you think I'm gonna come crawling back, that's not gonna happen. Um, I was also scared. I was young. I didn't really know. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I didn't know where I was gonna go, where I was gonna sleep, how I was gonna feed myself. I didn't know how to like do anything. Luckily, I did have a job at the time. I didn't have a car. I did have a motorcycle that I had saved up for. Um, but I actually ended up wrecking that and hurting myself, and that's a story in and of itself. But that was my only form of transport to get to work. So during that time, I was working at Chipotle, um, and honestly, that was still early. Like I'd only been working at Chipotle for like 6 months, right after I turned 16, kind of. And so all I had to my name was like $1,000 in my bank account. And I just remember calling my girlfriend. I was like, "Hey, I just got thrown out of the house." I was lucky, like I had a girlfriend at the time, because she had a car. She like we grew up in the same area, so Silver Spoon, all that. She had a car. Um, it wasn't like anything crazy, but a Toyota Camry, a nice late model, like 2010 or 12, I want to say. It's like a respectable car. Um, Definitely like a lifesaver there. So she picked me up that night. We stuffed all my stuff in the trunk, in the back seat of the car, and we just drove to like a Wawa. And like I couldn't stay at her place because we're still young, and like her family obviously isn't gonna want some random dude like crashing at their place with their daughter. So um, I slept in the car that night, and she slept at her place. She gave me the car basically because like she didn't need it at nighttime, and so I slept in the car. And I remember the first few days of like being homeless. All of a sudden, it was weird because like I would go to work, and then I'd leave work, but I didn't have anywhere to go. So like I would just like kind of sit at like parks and stuff, and like in public, and just trying to like pretend almost like I was doing something outdoors, and like, oh yeah, I'm just enjoying the outdoors, eating some food after a shift. But it was almost like peaceful. Like it was just me alone. Obviously, like I go see her when she was free, but like, and when she needed the car, we would drive and like take her to wherever she needed to go. But I just basically, I was lucky. I had a car that I could be sleeping. I wasn't like on the street, and I just remember sleeping in the car and like thinking like, yeah, this isn't too bad. Like it's kind of comfortable. Um, it was also weird too, cause like the sun would rise and you're like in the car, so you wake up as soon as the sun rises, and it's like it's almost peaceful. The world's at peace at like 6 a.m. and it's just you and the birds and like the morning dew. And I just remember like everything that was going through my head at the time. I was just like, how did I get here? You know, I went from having to, driving my parents' BMW around to go to high school, to homeless, working minimum wage at Chipotle. At the time, I was getting paid $9 an hour. Like I'm getting paid minimum wage, and I was supposed to be going to college too. So like, it just everything was crazy in my life. I was still 17, no way to even get an apartment, and that's where like the story kind of continues. So, and this happened like in the fall of 2020. So, um, I worked Chipotle, slept in a car. Nothing happened. I just kind of went through the motions. Um, Luckily, I didn't like give up, so I kept working. I saved my money because I'm sleeping in a car, so don't have any bills to pay there. In Chipotle, I worked there, so I was able to eat. Like that was huge. I was able to eat. It was included like as part of my shift, so I was able to eat and feed myself when I was working that day, and then on the days I didn't work, I was 17, so I couldn't work overtime yet. So when I hit my 40 hours a day, at least like I could hang out kind of in the Chipotle, and then food was 50% off as an employee. So like I didn't have anything crazy. I was able to save for a couple of months. Then January came around, and I actually had just received admission into UF for mechanical engineering. So um, I was basically ready to go to Gainesville, like, cause I had nowhere else to go, and it's time for college. So again, crazy luck. My girlfriend was also going to UF, and she was taking that car up to UF, and so I bummed a ride all the way to UF as well, um, and so. And she was like looking for a place too. It's almost kind of crazy. I was like, okay, what if we just move in together? I needed the help, that's for sure. And I just turned 18 too. So I was able to sign a lease. I had saved up money, so I had enough for that like, security deposit, and so we got a place together. It was like $900 a month for rent. It's honestly kind of high still, but like it wasn't something I couldn't make happen. You know what I mean? And so things like kind of started looking a little bit better once it was like a fresh start almost. You know, like a new place. I've never been to anywhere other than South Florida, and I've never been to Gainesville before, so it's a new place and like new people. And again, I was lucky I had my girlfriend, and she was like a huge support for me. And so, like I just put my head down and I started working. So I would go to work, I'd go to class, and then I started door dashing as well. And all of this was possible because I had just the luck of having that car to get me out of being homeless. And then obviously I saved up a good amount of money, right, working those few months before college. And so I was able to go pick up another motorcycle for $1,600. I basically spent everything I had to my name after the security deposit, and I got myself. I don't know if you guys are familiar with bikes, but I got myself a little 2012 CBR 250, and it was a great bike. I love that bike. I mean, it helped me get to work, helped me get to class, it helped me not force my girlfriend to drive me around everywhere and just split the time. And it was cheap on gas, which is great. And because I couldn't afford it, I learned how to do maintenance on my own. So I learned how to change the oil on the bike. I learned how to like maintain the chain and stuff. And over the next few months, like I really started to save up my money. I was a kitchen manager at Chipotle, and I was doing really well in my classes. And so I basically just locked in for a whole year. I didn't want to let myself be a burden. I didn't want to go crawling back to my parents, that's for sure. Like I wanted to prove that I could do it on my own. And I was fortunate. Like I was nothing crazy happened. I was able to keep saving, keep making money, keep my expenses low. Like for that all of 2020, all I did was work. Like honest, actually, that was 2021. Yeah, so all of 2021, all I did was work. Like I would do the same thing every day. I shopped at Walmart for my groceries. I tried to do nice things for my girlfriend, but like I had nothing to offer really. I was just lucky that like we were young and she didn't expect much, and so she was like, oh, he's a nice guy at least. And so to all of 2020, I really locked in. I worked hard, and then I did something stupid and crashed my bike one night, having fun basically with some guys riding around like an idiot. And that was bad because I totaled my bike. It was still drivable, so because I knew how to fix stuff, I was still able to drive it, but like it was bad. So I totaled the bike. I hurt myself too. I wasn't able to go to work for a couple of weeks, and that like really messed me up. And this happened like I want to say it was like the spring. Yeah, it was like February of 2022. And basically I depleted all my savings that spring. And before I knew it, it was summer and I was out of money, like barely scraping by, paying rent, electricity, all that. But I was lucky enough, I applied for rent assistance, like low income rent assistance, and it was granted to me. I got 4 months of rent assistance. Like no expectations to get it paid back at all. Just the federal government like being, hey, you need this, take it, and that like saved me from being homeless again. That was the only reason I was able to get back on my feet after my own stupidity. And from there, like the whole time throughout all of this, I was able to keep good grades. Like I had very high GPA throughout college, and I'll talk more about that later. But like, I did really well in my classes still with all of this going on. I still don't really understand how to this day. I mean, I know this. My physical health really started to decline, and I got no sleep, and my mental health was at an all-time low. But I stayed focused. I worked hard. I didn't like just fall into that victim mindset, and getting that, that God just dropped that 4 months of rent assistance there. I got back on my feet, and I was able to make it through 2022. So I didn't have rent, and I was able to keep working. And I started door dashing as well, supplementing my income. So I had like multiple income sources, and I was just, doing everything I could to save money, make money, and the rent assistance just completely changed my life again, direction wise. I was able to really save up, and this time I was like, all right, it can't be stupid anymore. And so I still only had, the bike, but I was actually able to upgrade the bike because I had already damaged it. I was able to upgrade to like a bigger, more reliable bike that I could like actually do more with. And so I was a 2004, 2003 CBR 600. That was a little stupid still, like me getting a faster bike that costs more but older, but it was the most reliable bike like ever. I never had any issues with it, so I was super lucky too. I got it from a really good seller. I had my friend drive me out to get it, like a friend from college. He drove me out to get it. I drove it all the way back it was like 2 hours to drive it back. And from there, 2023 came around the corner. And by this time, I'm in like my junior year of college. I have a great GPA, so I was really lucky. I landed a internship. So I stopped door dashing, I stopped everything else, and my internship paid me really well. Like seriously, like it was life changing. I was getting paid 20 an hour. And I know that sounds crazy, but like 20 an hour is doing, 30 hours a week at the time because that's what they gave me. And just being able to not have to do like a manual labor job and also do school and get paid more, like it just completely changed my quality of life. I actually had enough money, making 20 an hour to the point where I was able to like do some stuff. And that's where I kind of fell off track again. Started partying a lot, honestly, yeah, because I worked so hard for the first 2 years of college. I didn't even like have a chance to do anything. And at this time, I was 20. I wasn't even 21 yet. I was 20. And so I wasn't even legally able, to like go to clubs or anything. But I started like, we're getting 18 and up, wristbands and stuff, and like going to frat parties and, going to, all my friends were over, so like, having, just drinking alcohol nonstop, man. Like, and that's where my physical health just like went, because I wasn't doing a physical job anymore, and I started drinking like crazy, and school got really stressful. So now I was starting to, my GPA started to like dip a little bit, my performance in my classes started to go down, and like I really started to mess up again. And I put on like 30, 40 pounds of fat. I started like getting really like failing exams. I didn't mess up my internship though. That was the one thing, because I needed that, because that's how I paid for everything. So like, I did good at my internship, like really good actually. Like I was really good at my job, which was like really lucky too. I was really good at it. I actually got a raise at the end of 2023 to 25 an hour. and they extended my internship. And that was huge. Like 25 an hour, bro. I was like life changing. Like that tax return I filed that year, I made like 35K, I think it said. It was more than double what I had made like the years before that. And that was just completely like mind boggling to me. And so, the drinking and the partying continued on. But I did realize as 2023 came around, and it was you know midsummer, I was like, all right, I need to graduate. I can't keep messing up my classes. So like my GPA started to dip a little bit, but not to the point of like it being an issue. So I just went from like straight A's to like I starting to get some B's and C's here and there, and so I basically I locked back in. So I stopped drinking, stopped partying. I realized I had a really good job. They had bumped me up to 40 hours full time now, making 25 an hour, like making the most money I've ever made in my life. And I was like, all right, look, this is my last year of college. What am I here for? Am I here to keep partying? I'm fat at this point. I'm 190 pounds of fat at this point. And I was like, all right, look, only options I have now are try and make up for the years I missed in college, or take control of my life finally. Stop making this 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and just finish college, graduate, get my GPA good, and I did just that. So I really focused. I graduated. I was able to come out with a 3.55 magna cum laude, and get my engineering degree. And I had a really great internship, and from there I started applying to jobs, and I landed a really great job as a systems engineer. And by the time I graduated, it's 2024, and before you know it, I'm leaving Gainesville, moving to Tampa, Florida, to work at my high-paying systems engineering job. And this is the part where, this is the part where I look back and I think about, I really went from being homeless to, making 6 figures a year at a cushy office job. It completely changed my life. But the sad part is that I was almost like the unhappiest I've ever been. Like I lost myself in the process of doing that. And I found myself like with no self-confidence, and I had no energy, and I felt horrible, and like I hated going to work. And this is exactly 1 year ago, like March, April of 2024, I realized what happened to like the varsity swimmer, the like motorcycle enthusiast, like the guy who was all fit, in shape, as weird as it sounds, like able to go party and like be confident and have all that. And I realized it's because I had to get back to fitness. But this time I realized it's not about all these superficial things. It's about finding that inner peace. And I got into the gym, really. I got like back into, trying to improve myself again, right? I didn't just stop at the fact that, oh, now life is great and I can go party again. If anything, I realized how much hard work I had to put in to get to where I was after those 4 years, that I realized there's no reason for me to stop now. There's no reason for me to settle and be okay with where I am. And so I got into the gym. I started tracking everything. I mean, I was so focused. Like I didn't take any breaks. Just week in, week out, next 50 weeks, just completely focused. I went to work. I went to the gym. I worked out 6 days a week. I tracked my food. All I did was literally save my money, go to the gym, work out, and before you know it, I found hope again. Early this year, right about the time I started posting content and like sharing my story, like January of 2025, February of 2025, I'm like a completely different guy from where I was last year, much less 2 years ago, much less when I was homeless. And I just, looking back, it's something that I would love to tell my younger self, like all those sleepless nights, scraping by on every dollar to make sure you can make rent and pay your water bill, keep your electricity on, all that kind of stuff, right? You know, I wish I could apologize to him for having to grow up so early, but tell him that it's worth it. Like it gets better. There is a hope. There is a future. You just got to keep going and maybe do a little bit less of that. And maybe don't cause a little bit of that extra stress for yourself. Um, I'm just really fortunate to be where I am now. And my message, I guess what matters the most looking back on all of it is that it does get better. And there is hope. If you're homeless and life's been kicking you down day in, day out, and you just feel like nothing is going right, everything that can go wrong is going wrong, it's okay, because eventually something will go right. And whether that's pure luck, like it was with my rent assistance, or it's the result of your hard work, it will get better. And that work ethic, that is 1,000% the thing that saved my life. Being able at a young age to just work 40 hours overtime, achieve more, distinguish myself, like get promoted at, even if it's a minimum wage job, just getting that next step, getting promoted there, it's what saved my life. Because otherwise I would have had a victim mentality. I would have just been like, oh well, I guess there's no point, I just give up now, because I went from having all this given to me, handed to me my whole life, to being like, I couldn't, I didn't even think about this, like none of the guys I used to know in high school, nobody checked up on me, nobody even cared what happened to me, nobody knew what happened to me, really. They had no idea. I honestly, this is probably when they're gonna find out about all of it. Like, at the end of the day, you're your biggest supporter. And having a support system is awesome. Having friends, significant other, that's huge. Okay, it means so much. But even without all that, you have to support yourself. You have to believe in yourself. You have to put in the work for yourself and your future self. You have to be there now. You have to be there tomorrow, okay? So that you can be there for your future self. Your past self, everything that you do yesterday, an hour ago, it's affecting your present and your future. You are in control. So there is hope, even if you're homeless, even if you've been handed a horrible hand, right? Life just dealt you the worst set of cards you could possibly have. You have control. You can change it. You just have to put in the work. You just have to keep trying. Never give up. Okay? Never, ever give up. Always push forward. always try and do better, try and improve. There is there is something that you can do. There is just that little bit that you can try and make happen. So, don't feel like there's nothing left. Don't feel like this is the end. There's always going to be a future. It's just whether you go and you make that future happen. Take control and just go and get it. Because where I am now, I never would have imagined that I could be here when I was sleeping in the car. When I was sitting there on the driveway, I didn't think I'd be sitting here now in Miami, you know, looking at all these buildings and doing all these things and driving my sports car around, making 6 figures a year. You think the 17-year-old kid sitting on the driveway, sitting next to a bag of his clothes and like some freaking books is gonna, he had no idea what his life was gonna be like. All he knew is, okay, well, I have work at Chipotle the next morning. That's the thing. I still showed up to work. Not, I needed to. I needed that money even more so once I got thrown out. But it was that relentless commitment to putting in the work. You have control. There is hope. There is a future. All you have to do is go and make it happen. Push through all of the BS. Push through all of the challenges that get thrown your way, and you will succeed. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, as long as you put in the work and you believe in yourself. So, yeah, just want to thank you guys for listening to my story. I know I got pretty pretty motivated there. Yeah, I appreciate you guys watching. If any of you guys are in need of talking to someone, I'm always, you can reach out, say something. Always here to talk. Yeah, prioritizing your mental health is really important. You're not alone. You're not alone. Right? God, family, friends. Obviously, the things that we all think about when we think about we're not alone. But you are your own best friend. Seriously. If you can learn how to exist with yourself, you will never be alone. And there is always a hope. There's always future. You just have to be able to see it. Look for it through all of the clouds, all of the murkiness, all of the darkness. You just have to seek it, and eventually you'll find it. See you guys.